Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Witness TV. Today we are honored to have our esteemed guest, Mrs. Shameen Thakur-Rajbansi, in studio with us. No stranger to the media, she is a esteemed politician in her own right, a former member of legislature, a pharmacist, and now a movie director, producer,
Co-producer.
co-producer. Mrs. Rajbansi, welcome to our studio.
Thank you, Niyanta. I'm really privileged to be here.
Absolutely. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you need no introduction, but, tell us about yourself, your background, where you grew up, education, marriage.
Well, I was born in Durban because, it was traditional that, especially in the Hindu community, for the first child, your mum went to her parents' home. So that's how I was born here. But, of course, I grew up in Newcastle, which was my paternal home. And I schooled there. My dad was a teacher at the primary school, Isivara Primary School. So I went there. From there, I went on to St. Oswald's High School. And, I had a very rich life, childhood, because Newcastle was very rural. And so there, I enjoyed like the freedom of the farm and animals and just nature. And all these, sandy roads and dams and a lot of nature. But when it came to Durban, where our summer holidays were spent at my maternal side of the family, then we saw the city life and the beach and like a larger population and the city. So we got like a very good feel of both sides of life. So I think, that was a very balanced period until I got to university. So Durban was the obvious choice because it was familiar territory. And I studied at the University of Durban-Westville and qualified as a pharmacist. Then I went back to Northern Natal to do my internship at Ladysmith Provincial Hospital. Then I got back to Durban and I bought an existing pharmacy in the low socioeconomic area of Phoenix. It was very low socioeconomic in those years, in the 1990s. And I practiced there for 20 years, until I fought elections and got into the KZN legislature.
Wonderful and varied experiences, So what inspired you to take up a career in politics, and how did your upbringing shape that, if at all?
Well, as I said, I grew up in Newcastle, which was a conservative town. And, I started participating in school debates at a very young age, at 12 years old. So I started from primary school. And the topics there were just the mundane topics. But that debating I pursued in high school. I liked it because I spent a lot of time in the library, and I liked researching. I started, gaining that sort of attraction, especially because high school, you were now presented with more challenging topics, and high school gave you more exposure to things like the Chetty Shield, which was more a family donated trophy for the best orator. And then you had the Encounter JCs that came in, and they had a floating trophy also for the best debating team. And so as a team leader, you would get the floating trophy if your team won. And then as the time went on, in the senior phase of high school, the Jan Hofmeyr Freedom speech contest was for the senior students, but those were for individual students. So like the best would be put into that program. And I always represented my school. So I would participate at school level and then in Northern Natal. And you'd have to win all those to come to the finals.
Right.
And I always landed up from Northern Natal in the finals and then participated, not even in a public school setup, because the people that used to win in the Midlands used to always come from the private school. So they either came from Treverton College or they came from Alexander Boys High or something. And I debated in all these schools, but like in the final.
Yeah. And
I would always debate. I would be one girl debating against boys that came in the final.
Oh, wow.
And and I would be the only Indian because the others would be white students.
Right.
But it was a Jan Hofmeyr freedom speech contest. So in that contest, you could speak about anything.
Yeah.
And they'd give you topics, but somehow my topics gravitated towards politics.
Right.
And it was because I came from a conservative town and I couldn't understand how if you walked across the street, you would be in another section of town.
Yes.
And you had to stay on this section. Or that if you went to a school, you couldn't go to another school.
Yeah.
And how I got that exposure was that when I was in standard 6, there was a nunnery that we used to pass. So today it's St. Dominic's High, but before it was St. Dominic's Nunnery.
Okay.
But I'd always peep across to see what the children were doing there.
Yeah.
And then because my dad was a teacher, he knew the nuns well. And then they were training students in ballet. So they allowed my dad to bring me because I wanted to do ballet.
Okay.
So when I got to there, I realized that school was different.
Yeah.
But I only went there to train in ballet. And and they used to give piano lessons and all that. But I did that because in school I took part in gymnastics, and the ballet also prepared me for that.
Okay.
There were like more skills you learned in ballet that you could apply in gymnastics. So, those are so I got that exposure, but I also questioned the differences.
Yes.
In my mind, it was always playing, and then my topics gravitated towards that. And then I just started reading on political icons.
Right.
And I started saying that even with the politicians, it was a tough life because they would also have to make decisions, and sometimes it didn't make everyone happy. But you had to then understand the context in which it was being made. And so I wanted to be a lawyer.
Right.
Because I said, no, I must be a lawyer because I win all these trophies, I can speak, I'm confident, But my dad said, no, you're not going to be a lawyer because you will go into jail because of your views.
Yeah.
You're very radical. And it's not a good thing. And I had 5 other younger sisters, and they were not as outspoken as I was. And he thought, God, this girl, she's going to cause a lot of problems.
A proper firebrand.
Yeah, and then what will happen to all her sisters because they are going to be like casualties of all this. So then when he put me into university, he wanted me to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Because he says he's not wasting the S7 courses. And I spent so much of time in learning maths and science and all kinds of things. I must be a doctor.
Right.
But then my mom, she didn't want me to be a doctor because she was very stereotypical about what a girl can do and what a boy could do. And my dad was the opposite. He was there for girl empowerment because he had 6 daughters.
Yes.
And he said, no, but they're my 6 sons and they can do anything. But my mom was different. She says, no, I don't want my children touching other people. But she says you could wear a white coat and stand behind a counter and you could do just as good a job at diagnosing a patient and giving them medicines.
Yes.
And that will help them more. So there was a strong thing. But when I got to university, I so much wanted to go and do law. But I was so worried. My father's words were ringing in my mind. And my dad passed on when I just entered university. I wasn't even 3 months in university, and I went home for my first Easter holiday, and my dad passed away on the Easter Monday. So I didn't have that mentoring from that time, so I had to rely on my mom, and she was also strong-minded, so I did what she wanted me to do.
Right.
Because now I had to be more careful about politics because I had to also worry about the 5 sisters that I had, and we were very vulnerable at that time. So I did what I had to do, and I pleased my mom.
And of course, it was quite a turbulent time in politics.
Very turbulent, and we saw what was going on the campus and the
Yes.
rioting, and university was always closed.
Yes.
So many times. There was so much of disruption. You're always going back home, and it was tough to in pharmacy because there was a quota system, and the class was small, and the science students were like warned, not to be seen rioting because you could lose your seat. And if you had that seat now, it was like a golden seat.
Absolutely, yes.
And then you had to think, how you're going to do this in other ways. But I think we did a lot in our own gatherings on our side of the campus. And we had some students who were very active, who were day students who were feeding us with whatever information, and then you brainstorm things and you gave ideas of what else can be done. But so that activism started there because there was a lot of activity in the 80s on campus. But when I got into pharmacy, and as I said, I was in Phoenix, I was treating patients. But my patients were coming in every day, like with a headache or with some problem, and they would bring in like small change just to buy a tablet every day. And I couldn't be a pharmacist who could just sit there, make this money, and not counsel them and think that this thing was damaging their body. And so I wanted to know, what's a headache like? Why do you get a headache every day?
Yeah.
And then they started telling me that they got other problems, that they need to sleep because they've got a child who's a drug addict, or their landlord is trying to evict them, or that they've got a disabled child and they need a grant and they can't get a grant, or their husband has lost a job and there's no money in the house. And then I said, oh dear, now I can help them with medicines, but I don't even now want to do that because that's not the real problem. There's another problem.
Yeah.
So I started looking then very deeply into the social determinants of health. Because if you could get the social problem out, you can get their health right.
Yeah.
And so then I said, now who is going to help them with this? Because there has to be people who can help them. And then I realized, hey, let me look for the councillors in the area and the MPs and all that. So eventually I found some of them. And when I found them, they didn't know how to help even this person to get a house, or how to do an appeal for a grant. And then I started writing appeal letters as a pharmacist to tell them you must appeal. And this is the motivation you must give for them to get their grant. So as I carried on doing that, and I was doing a lot of philanthropy for my pharmacy, because I felt very strongly about corporate social responsibility. And I was working lots more in the community from a health point of view, but also then realizing that there was so much of other developmental needs in the community. So I was engaging then with politicians actively, but I was also saying that a lot of politicians were fighting. Some of my colleagues, doctors, were fighting elections, local government and things, but they were not winning the election. And yet they were fighting sometimes against an ordinary citizen who may not be a professional, but they would win the election. Yeah. So I said, hey, something is not right here with this politics, Why is it that a professional who has so much of knowledge and has such a big support base in the community, but they're not winning? And then as I started, so they even realized that, hey, but she's politically active, she's helping people. So people started approaching me to join their party.
Right.
And to fight elections, like they were approaching other professionals. But then I thought about that, and then I said, but why does someone not win if they're in a particular party? And yet I know this person is a good person as a professional. They would care for people. But then I said, no. So when you get into politics, I thought you needed a lot of money.
Right.
Number one. So I was saving my money, and I said, when I get into politics, I have to have money to fight this election.
Yes,
But at the same time, I said, but I can't take that risk with money when I could be a good person But if I don't have a good party that the people want, then it won't work.
It's not going to make a difference. Yes.
Then I started a survey with my patients.
Right.
And I asked them, so if I join this party, would it be okay? And they carried on saying, no, they don't want this party, they don't want that party, they don't want... So I said to them, then which party do you want?
Yeah.
Then they said, no, we want the Minority Front. And I
Right.
said, God, I didn't even hear that this party exists.
Okay.
So they said, no, because it's not active in Phoenix. They said, you'll have to find Mr. Rajbansi, and he's only active in Chatsworth.
Yes.
But if his party can come here and you can fight for his party, then we will have the right person and the right party, and we will vote.
Okay.
So that's how I had to go and see who is, find out who is Mr. Rajbansi and what does he do? What does the party stand for? Why are people so attracted to this party?
Right.
And if I join it, then I thought that it will be the right thing for the constituency. And that's how I started fighting elections. But to the credit of the people, I fought 5 elections, parliamentary, and I won all.
Wow,
so
well
the
done.
thing is that it was because of people.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it was because you have to work, as well to
Yes.
help
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. So, you're obviously a trailblazer in your career and in politics. But what have been some of the challenges you've faced as a woman in politics?
I think for me, it was opponents, tough opponents, because remember, it's very male dominated.
Yes.
So when I was fighting the 1999 election, I had made up my mind from day one that I was not going to employ dirty tactics. It's just not me. I will do what I believe is right, because I'm not here to delve into things that are, to me, it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to do what I could do best. But I was now faced with that challenge, that people could do these things. And how do you handle that? And then I was also shy of the media. So it was not a plus for me there, because others were so media savvy, and they were they had a lot of control in those ways because they were seasoned, and I was fighting seasoned politicians.
Yes, you were.
That had a lot of money power, and they had all these different tactics in their toolkit that I didn't have, because I was just thinking that I'm just running a normal campaign.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of ways to handle those things. Thank God Mr. Rajbansi was there.
Yeah.
And he was tough. He could confront so to have a good mentor and a leader who has his mind to empower women is also very important.
Yes.
Especially if it's a male leader.
Yes.
And so that helped me a lot in the initial years. But I think that once I got to Parliament, that now was another scenario, because it was terribly male-dominated. Parliament at that time, the whole precinct was made for men. So a lot of changes had to come. But I entered Parliament as a youth.
Yeah.
So again, I was a little fortunate, because all the MPs were senior people. So they became very fatherly and motherly and all that. So they looked at me as a young MP that was eager to learn, so they were willing to train. Yeah. So I was I would say, at the right place at the right time. Yeah. I feel today for women to enter politics is also hard, because now there's a lot of young people there, and I think that a lot of the seasoned people are not there, so it's tough for them. But I had those, but I just had to navigate them, because even in the committees, how do you manage? So Mr. Rajbansi used to tell me one thing, like my late dad used to say, that education is the only weapon for a girl.
Absolutely.
And so even Mr. Rajbansi told me that right till until he could pass on. He says, Shameen, you have got to continue studying. He says, you have got to be on the top of your game, because education is going to be your competitive edge as a woman in politics. So that's what I continued doing. And I can tell you one thing, it has helped me tremendously to network,
Yes.
with like-minded people to do the best for people, to produce the results that carries on getting you elected. And it makes you not, I wouldn't say indispensable in Parliament, but it makes you, earn your place in Parliament and your respect in Parliament. And it's also one way to develop a relationship with the media if you were shy of the media, etc. But I think that that's my one advice to girls who want to now fight elections. They must have their mind in the right place. They must enroll for the right courses. And I must tell you one thing, Parliament itself is a very empowering space because the National Assembly, they have a in-house institution, Palama, that actually helps MPs in so many empowerment programs, and they expose us to so many international fora where you can study. And they even pay for some of our university courses, and they even give a budget like 20,000 Rand a year. I know at the time when I was there that you could do any certification course you wanted to do. That's so no MP today can tell me that they can't compete, especially the women.
Yes.
They can. And knowledge is one space you can really compete.
Yeah. And knowledge is power.
Power.
Yeah. So you're known for several key policy development initiatives in the legislature. What are some of the highlights of these policies that you were involved in? Which are the ones that stick out as having brought about great change?
Yeah, I always use the opportunity of the motions in Parliament to, read up and bring issues that were on the boil or hot and that needed to be debated either as a debate of public importance or a debate that could change a legislation. So I was known at many times. I remember the late Loretta Ngobo of the IFP, when she was leaving Parliament, she said that if there was any MP that placed the most motions in Parliament, it was me. And because every day I had a motion.
Right.
And I wanted some things debated and to change things. But the one area that I used to the maximum was when the party had to introduce a debate.
Right.
So all those debates, Mr. Rajbansi used to leave to me, because the first one that I introduced when I just got to Parliament was for the KZN province to have a blueprint for poverty alleviation.
Yeah.
And that time, our late Premier, the Honourable Lionel Mshali, he was putting a lot of budgets towards reducing poverty in the province. And at that time, we were chasing the Millennium Development Goals, which there were 8 goals. The first one was to eradicate poverty and hunger. So I said, no, we have to see how to measure this goal and see what the province can't just put money. And you can't measure it, you can't evaluate it, and you can't say what impact you made towards achieving this goal. So then I introduced a debate on poverty alleviation, and then asked for benchmarking and asked for best practices in terms of what will work. And that's how we moved budgets, and we started getting programs like the Cushion Jarada program, and better line items to reduce poverty. And then we started getting the National Assembly, getting the Sakume Sake program, Operation Sakume Sake, which was the OSS program. And that's how the war rooms eventually came. So a lot of that happened out of that. And then we had an impact at that time, even of HIV and AIDS. So the child support grant came in. I remember I worked very passionately on the social, that time it was social welfare, with also the late Gideon Zulu, so that we could get this thing done. So all that to help relieve poverty, but also very strong on the social determinants that go together with all these issues. And the other one was the ECD policy. So that one I was very passionate about, because I was sent on an education trip to India. And there I saw how, the Gurukul system, and how children go to school as soon as they can start talking, like at 3 years. Yes. And then I started studying the American policy of ECD, and how working mothers are helped if their children are going to creches and they go into school very early, and the schooling system becomes a seamless system. And the reason why I was passionate about that is because our matric results, I felt, were not a proper outcome, like a quality outcome for education, because we'd always have to increase the marks to try to push children through. And I felt that you can't do that at the end of the schooling.
Yes, yeah.
You must start from the beginning when you can look after children, So therefore, I spent a lot of time working with Minister Ina Cronje. She was Minister of Education. I tried initially with the other minister, but he was more worried, I would say, about rather getting a better matric outcome and not worrying about the inception. But as a mother, I thought that ECD was very important. So when Ina Cronje became the Minister of Education, she used to agree with me on this point, because I introduced it as a debate. And I discussed the American system and the Indian system and how this is going to help the children. So eventually we started pushing, Ina put monies towards ECD, and then we started that program. And then she, in her following term, she became finance minister, and she tripled that budget. She tripled it so well, and I tell you, we had the great arts come in, the arts come in, and I actually went around the province as a party leader just to give abacusses and so many gifts to all the children in all the primary schools, and motivate the mothers to send their children to school, because I really wanted to see children be in school, be safe, not on the roads, because we were working mothers as well, single mothers and all that. And I wanted the children to be taken good care of from the inception, so that we got better quality outcomes in the matric level and even in the schools. So that was a great one. The other one was the triple BE policy. When I was doing my MBA, my lecturer told me that we were studying the scorecard for triple BE, and he said one of the worst things is that he's working every day with people who are wanting to exercise, this policy needs to be implemented, but it's not going anywhere. And he should tell me, but it's you legislators, you haven't even established the council yet. You've never even done the verification agencies, and then we are sitting with all these problems. So then I went to Parliament and I made sure I introduced the debate on triple BE. And then that time Minister Spoonabele, he was Premier of the province. And that day everybody came to Parliament because everyone listened to BE and what we must do, because it was a burning issue. And then he made sure that immediately the council was set into motion and the verification agencies were up, and then we started getting the implementation. So it fast-tracked it. Otherwise it would just died a natural death if we didn't, So many things. I did another one when I was doing my master's at WITS. I did one on assessing the patient safety culture in obstetric units. I actually did it here in the Umgungunjlova district with Gray's Hospital in Edendale and Northdale. And then the outcomes of that was the minister actually tripled our maternal and childcare budget, because our cesarean section rates were very high and way out, and I needed to see how to save mothers and babies and how to get the obstetric units accredited. And a lot of it also came from my own personal life and as a mother, and the difficulties you have with childbirth and cesarean sections and all that. And I felt that from our own experiences, at least as a legislator, we need to protect other mothers and children and all that. So a lot of things that I've done a lot of motions on affirmative action and how to change that and that policy. And it's carried on. I think before I left Parliament, I did one more motion, one more party debate on affirmative action, and made sure that the province started and the country must start looking at the DEI method that now the Americans have, and with Harvard University. It's working well, but I see that the Echiqueni municipality adopted that kind of thing. But I think that we have to work on that, because our party, being the Minority Front, looking after minority rights, we worry about things like race-based policy. So it's a mainstay of our politics that we have to, be a watchdog on.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So, as leader of the Minority Front, and affirmative action affecting our community. What are your thoughts on current day affirmative action and BEE policies? Is it working for the community? Can there be changes? Is it still relevant?
You see, I always said that South Africa was a different kettle of fish, and that was because of the apartheid legacy. You see, it was initially, I didn't, none of us, not even Mr. Rajbansi, we didn't oppose affirmative action.
Right.
We realized that it was a moral issue, and we needed to right the wrongs of the past. But everyone thought it was it's supposed to be a temporary thing. Yeah. Everyone agreed on that.
Okay.
So there was a sunset clause on it. It was supposed to be scrapped in 2014. But then the ANC Youth League came in, and then they wanted it to still continue. Right. And that's where the problems came in, because my issue was that I felt that it should be scrapped or either replaced by something that was for everybody, like following a policy of the greatest good for the greatest number. Mm. And that means being diverse and being inclusive and, moving more towards merit-based policy. So I felt that we needed to do that transition at that time. But okay, they pushed it, and therefore I had to carry on fighting it. Yeah. Because I still feel today that we can replace it. And why I know that this is important, because in my last debate, I did a whole analysis of the DPSA report. Yeah. And I promise you, it's in shambles. We cannot even give you stats on how many billionaires we produced or how many millionaires we produced or where the money went to, how much of losses we incurred, or whether we ever saw any benefits of it, who benefited, because there's still massive unemployment. Yeah. There is still so much of crime. There is still such a consumer-based economy that we have. We don't have a manufacturing, like a thriving secondary economy, and the primary ones are also very monopolized. So, where are all the emerging people? Yeah. And how widespread is that butter? Yeah. So for me, all those things became, and I'm not saying this only for minority communities. Look at the African community; they have got so much of talent. Yeah. I mean, they are young African people who come to me and they say that they are sidelined, they are marginalized because they are not politically connected. Right? But yet they have so much of potential. They have the capacity, they have the capabilities to move that NDP wheel that has all those components. There are children out there that have this ability, but they're just being denied it because of political connections. So I think that there's fair reason to say that if something is not working, you rather scrap it and replace it by something that is born out of consultation with everyone of what will work, like whether it's proper apprenticeship programs, proper skills development. With AI coming in, I mean, we are going to need artisans and people that AI can't replace. So if we move towards all those things, we'll spend better money than wasting it on BE entrepreneurs and all those kinds of things. But we'll even increase our tax base in our country. Our economy will be booming, because you just have to open those doors to give everyone an opportunity.
Listening to you here, I feel it's just such a premature decision of yours not to be involved in politics any longer. I'm hoping you'll change that at some point. So what are your plans for the future, both, personally and professionally?
I think personally now, it's to do this movie for Mr. Rajbansi, to write his book, but also to do other important things that are required. Like I've embarked on a podcast. Yes. It's called the Tigress Talks podcast.
Oh, lovely.
So, and the slogan is Truth Triumphs. All right. So I want to do that because I want to get people involved. I want to get them talking. I want to speak to ordinary people, and I want to impart knowledge about lawmaking and regulation making and how it impacts people on their daily lives, and make them more aware about that end of things, rather than just talking and not understanding what's causing the problems and the bottlenecks, and how they can be active participants in the whole political process. So I think that that's the one thing. The other is to write the books that I want to write, the one for Mr. Rajbansi. And I also want to do the same for myself, because I feel that if I'm not here, who will do it? Who will know me, well? I think for Mr. Rajbansi, at least I know him well.
Yes,
I could be there for him and do this. But I was just thinking, there's no one that may know me so well. So I might as well do this myself.
Yeah.
And so that it would be, because I know how hard it's been to produce this movie for Mr. Rajbansi without him.
Yes.
So I felt that while I'm here, let me do what I can. But professionally, I think so also I launched an institute last year in December called the Chanakya Knowledge Institute. So that institute, I want to do political training and start training young people and have a pipeline of young leaders who can understand politics.
That's very
interesting.
interesting.
And we can have good leaders who will understand why they're there and what's their job, what they must be doing, and how they can stay in politics for a long time if they, just determine, they work hard, and they do what it takes. You have to do just what it takes. So that kind of thing. So I think that we have to do that, especially if our country has change and evolve politically, and we have to compete with other democracies.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. A lot of people go to university, they study all kinds of things, but they shy away from politics. So I have to try and do this. And then professionally, I think, sometimes people say, oh, you must not say you're a career politician. So try to refrain from that. But whatever it is, I think that there's scope for that, because some people just like staying in politics and they do a pretty good job at it. But for me, and now that I'm healing and getting stronger, I feel that with the problems that our communities are currently facing, with so much of service delivery problems, and there's so much of accountability problems at different levels of government, that I've made up my mind that I will fight the next local government elections, 2026 one, And so I'm recruiting candidates for that. And it will go well with my training programs and everything, so that I can test those out, with people while I'm fighting these elections. But also that I'm looking forward to now fighting the 2029 parliamentary elections again.
Okay.
And then make a comeback and see what else I can do in that time. But in that space, I'm doing it also because I need to train other people who will continue with the work. And then there's no vacuum, there's no void, and that we complete this process, because it's for me, leadership is like a relay.
Yeah,
it's like someone has to hand the baton to someone else, and for me, I was fortunate Mr. Rajbansi did that. But now for myself, I need to also hand over to someone else, and for that they need to be trained and fit for purpose, and then we go on like that. And that's a more responsible way of handling a political party, and even the lives of the budding and emerging politicians, because they do need to be handheld.
Yeah. So we've just touched on it. You've spoken about Mr. Rajbansi. So can you just tell us a little bit about your relationship with him, your life with him, and politics with him, of course?
Yeah.
How did you guys meet?
Well, we met when I was wanting to join the MinorityFront. So when I joined the MinorityFront, you will find that I always call Mr. Rajbansi, even although I'm married to him. But it was because when I joined the party, that's how it was. And so I became the head of the Women's League in 1998. In 1999, the both of us went to Parliament, and we sat in the provincial legislature. At that time, Mr. Rajbansi, I think, he got divorced in that period. Something that was happening for a long time.
It was very long drawn out.
It was a very long drawn out.
I wrote many stories about that.
So I didn't follow all those things, but I know that those things were happening. And here's our leader, so we never asked him about those sides of his life.
Yeah.
So after that, I think it was more like when Mr. Rajbansi was, I would say, now single. And so a lot of the MPs would tease him and me. And the thing is that I didn't know what, they were senior MPs, so
Yes.
I don't know, I thought it just say jokes. But I left it at that until Mr. Rajbansi himself, asked me one day that if I would be interested in marrying him. And then I didn't know. It was a very difficult decision.
Yeah.
But then eventually I took so many things into consideration to say, okay, I think it would be okay. And our lives were starting to become so intertwined that we were becoming so dependent on each other to support each other politically and
Within the party,
within the party, and the sharing of tasks and duties, whether it was constituency offices, fighting by-elections, elections. You were always together doing work. And I realized eventually, I think it just became inevitable. But when we got married with Mr. Rajbansi, it was like the institution of marriage was very sacred. So, and even with me, because we understood that at the time of getting married, that it wasn't only about finding the right partner.
Right.
But for us, it was about being the right partner for each other.
Yeah.
So, like, we had to understand each other. So, and with our work, the work outside, the political work, never spilled into the house.
Yes.
We had a rule.
Yeah.
At home, it was just home.
Okay.
Whatever was for the house. And we try to balance the family life, the public life, and all that, and try to be as much in both places, trying to do all the things together, because we had children to co-parent. We had, so because I had a son, Mr. Rajbansi had 5 children, and we had grandchildren coming, and children getting married. So a lot of things.
Demanding.
Very demanding.
Demanding family life, demanding political life. Because that was the height of political activity.
Yeah, it was the height of political. So there was, and then, I used to be studying in between all that, and he'd be supporting me even in the studies.
Yeah, I remember he'd come to us, Shameen, she does so much. And she got 100% in the exam that she wrote. We knew all about that.
Yeah. So he'll say, but he told me, he says, you're going to university to do this part-time thing. I'm giving you a letter, because the university wanted a letter, and said, will she be able to do it? Will she drop out and say that she's fighting a by-election or an election? And then he says, so I went to him and I thought, hey, he'll give this letter easily.
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, I'll give you this letter, but you will not miss any parliamentary meeting or sitting or any of the by-elections and all that. And I said, God, I don't know how this works. So I asked him, so where do I get the time? He says, you find the time.
Yeah.
It's 24 hours in a day, you decide. Yeah. Then the only time I found was my sleep time.
Oh, okay.
So basically 3 years, I had no sleep.
Sure.
So when all the work was done, I would sit and do studying the whole night. And then, but the only 2 people who would come to check on me the whole night was my son and him.
Okay.
Because he would say, you need to sleep for at least an hour.
Yeah.
And my son would say, Mom, do you want a cup of tea?
Yeah.
And I said, God, they had to go through this whole thing. But they were there at my graduation. They were very happy. Yeah. But I think a lot of that support, so we did things together. In Parliament, we worked very well together. The MPs will tell you that if Mr. Rajbansi starts a fight, they know his wife is going to finish this fight, but at least I'll come down, not hard like him, and I'll soften things and unify people and, stop all the fighting that was going on. So, we had a way of resolving so many things, and still, keeping all our relationships intact with our colleagues and everybody. And I think we worked very well together. It was about respecting each other and making sure that we avoided having a quarrel. We didn't have a quarrel about anything, and it was always because it was like a husband and wife relationship where many people will say, I think words like "I love you" come very easily. For me as a person, it never comes easily.
Yeah.
I can never say those things.
Right.
But I in talking, I could say that, okay, we'll do this the way you require it.
Yeah.
Or, we'd give and take.
Yeah.
And I think that was as good as saying that you care for somebody.
Yes.
And those are some of the things that made our marriage it made it very special. And, and you must know, as a practicing Hindu, we understand Sri Dharma and the duty
Yes.
of a wife.
Yeah.
So that's why the things that I do now, sometimes people may think of it politically, but I also look at it very culturally.
Yes.
That it is a duty of a wife to do some things to promote and preserve the legacy of a family, of a husband, and give something even for the children.
Yes.
To be proud about or to be motivated about, and so that one day, you don't know which of the children could actually be inspired by it too, and do the things that Ms. Rajbansi was doing.
Yeah. I just want to ask you, looking back at your career thus far, what has been the highlight, and what do you hope your legacy will be, and how do you want to be remembered?
Well, I want to be remembered as a woman who tested a hypothesis that girls can't carry a family name. They can't leave a legacy. I got a double-barrel surname. And the reason is because I lived up to the promises of my late dad that a girl is just as good as a son. And I feel that is a legacy that I could leave, especially for young women, to be empowered enough to say that if I could do it, any other woman can do it. You just got to put your mind in the right place. And irrespective of what your circumstance, that's something that will always happen in anyone's life.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story to tell. But the thing is that how they react to it, how they respond to it, what their mindset's like, that is very important. So if women can have this, I would say impregnable barrier or shield around their head, that they can hold their ground if they have an opinion or they have a viewpoint and it makes sense, it's reasonable, then they must make sure that gets enforced, because it will save a lot of problems occurring. So I think that women need to be that confident.
Yeah, and I think that was important, especially for our community. And, it's also pleasing to note that women have made great strides in our community, obviously motivated by ladies like you.
Yeah. Have to motivate them.
Yeah.
Attention, everybody. This is A. Rajbansi of the Minority Front.
He's unmatched in terms of reading the mood of the community. Whatever his motivation was, he could see where people were and what you needed to take them along with you.
We have been together for a long time. And he has got excellent qualities of leadership.
I want to wind up by saying that the price of success is always eternal vigilance. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.